Broadcasting from the Dixon Petunia Festival Sweetland Studios, this is Along the Rock.
Hello again and welcome to Along the Rock, our podcast that pays homage to the people of the Sauk Valley and also the river that runs through it. I'm your host today, Mike Moris. Joining me a couple of Rock Falls Rotarians. Tom Myers, thanks for coming up, Tom.
Thank
Appreciate
you. Thanks for having me.
And also Bob Sondgeroth, who should be real familiar to just about anybody who's ever heard of or been involved with the Foreign Exchange Student Program that the Rock Falls Rotarians are known so well for.
That's true.
Bob, I appreciate it.
You bet.
One thing I know about, well, actually two things I know about Rotarians. They sing at their meetings.
Yeah.
And number two, they know how to get things done. Is that accurate?
Well, except when Tom became president, we forgot the songbooks. And we never found them again.
Right.
Sounds like
The only time we sing anymore is when the district governor comes. So we have a little ditty that we do for the district governor. Other than that, the singing's kind of a thing of the past. So anybody who wants to join it, we're held up by the singing part. We don't do that anymore.
Yeah,
Well, if that encourages some people to want to join up, that's
right.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
What we're looking for, what we're talking about, of course, is the student exchange program. It's been going on for a long, long time. I was just thinking if I had been a little more aware in high school, I might have taken part in it. I grew up in Aurora, a bigger town, but I just didn't. I hadn't heard of it until I met one of the students who came over to the U.S. It was from England.
Right.
So, and then I thought, well, how do they do that? Because I had never heard of any, anybody talking about it or offering it to any families or anything like that. But you guys seem to be more on top of that. So,
Right. And
is this the season for recruiting?
Well, for what the main thing is we're looking at right now, and you've kind of segued into this pretty well because you met an exchange student that had come over from another country.
Sure.
And that's what we're trying to facilitate in Rock Falls. We've had obviously students before, but this year we have a young lady from Czechia, the old Czechoslovakia, that is coming over, and we're trying to find a host family or preferably three host families to take her in for the school year. We need to get on that because obviously the school year starts in August.
Yeah.
So, as you said, it's a really good, you still remember that from high school. I still remember our exchange students from high school. I think it's very valuable for our students to see somebody from a different culture, a different country come in and interact with them on their turf versus, we have the outbound, of course, which was my daughter did. She went over to Italy. And that's a little bit different. You have a single person going over and now she's the outsider, if you will, but trying to welcome that insider in and let your kids see what it's like and see what it's like to be around this person from another culture. And hopefully we treat them very well. We've had host families are hard to find. Don't get me wrong.
All right. What are the challenges, Bob?
Challenges are just getting somebody to commit to having another child in their household for 3-4 months.
Teenager.
Right. And unfortunately, there's other exchange programs out there that aren't based in Rotary.
Okay.
The difference is what Rotary International brings is somebody like Tom. When that student comes over, Tom is there for her. And if there's a problem with the host family, she contacts Tom and we move her. Or we mediate the problem with the host family.
That's right.
Okay.
It's not like somebody's just coming over and saying, okay, here you go. And then you don't ever see them again.
Here's the address.
Yeah.
And if I'm not available, Bob's there. And if Bob's not available, we have a whole host of Rotary members that are there to provide backing for, either side. We've had this happen one time where the host family and the student didn't get along.
Okay.
It happens. Personalities clash, and certainly cultures clash. So we were able to move that student on to a different host family. No harm, no foul. There was no bad blood. It was just kind of agree to disagree type of thing.
Yep. Right.
But that's been the rarity. Normally, as Bob and I have both been host families, you stay in touch with that student, and Bob obviously has a very good relationship with
Carl was our exchange student from 2006, 2007. And she became best friends with my daughter.
Okay.
Even though
that happens
she had a couple other host families, she she stayed, and so much so that when my daughter got married, let's see, June 15th, so it's coming up, 2019, Carl came back from Germany to be in the wedding.
Wow.
And then we were supposed to go to her wedding, and COVID hit. And so once COVID hit, we couldn't go over. And so she actually postponed it for a year, hoping that we could be there. And then at the end of the year, she said, they got married by a justice of the peace over in Germany. And they said, we're sorry, we just have to have the wedding. No, we can't. And we understood completely. So we still haven't been back. Jenny and I went in 2008 when Caro sent me an email saying, I missed Jenny so much that my Oma, her grandma, came out and put €100 on the table and said, if you miss her that much, bring her over. So can Jenny come over? Well, Jenny had never even been on a plane before, much less gone out of the country. So my wife and I took a walk and walked the dog and talked about it. She said, well, you love Caro as much as Jenny does. Why don't you go with her? And I said, seriously? And she said, yeah, I think it would be fine. So we talked to Caro, and Caro's parents said, yeah, we have an extra room in the basement. It'll be just fine. I said, you can find me a hostel or something. No, you can stay there. So we went over we left on Christmas Day in 2008, and we came back 8 days later. And it was fantastic. We had a little trouble with the connecting flight in Paris. Back then, your cell phones didn't work internationally really well, so I had to use my credit card, spend $65 on a call back to my wife in the middle of the night to call Caro's family and say, we're going to not be in at 9:30, we're going to meet at 1:30. Okay. But it all worked out. And then we stayed there for 8 days, and I got to be in a German family for 8 days just to get a taste of what it's like. Caro's parents had hosted 3 or 4 times. And their rule was, Caro's mom speaks French, English, and German. And she said, I will translate for you for the first 2 weeks. And then after that, we start getting away from it. And after a month and a half or 2, German. It's just German. We're not going
to expect more.
Yeah, we'll expect more.
Exactly.
And it works out because that's when you learn the language much better when you're immersed in it. I mean, you can ask Tommy, Tom's daughter. She didn't, that was unique because in Italy, they have so many different languages within Italy.
Yeah, you ask her, she'll say, I don't speak Italian, I speak Sardo, which is because it's so close to Corsica, which is a French country or island, that there's a blended language that happens there. And she says, if I went up to Venice, which is in the north, I would have a hard time understanding because not only there's different words for nouns and such, but just the dialect and the emphasis that they put and some of the slang that they use would be different than what she uses. So
she probably found that also when talking with Maggie. Maggie is somebody that Tom hosted from Italy. Yeah, she was from Milan. Mm-hmm. So you would think, well, Italy, no, completely different sections of Italy.
Absolutely.
And Maggie just turned 26. Mm-hmm. Got a happy birthday. I sent her a happy birthday. So that's the lifelong connections you get with students, with Rotary. Yes. And Rotary is there as a host, for you as a host family, so that if you have a problem or if there's an emergency in the family and you can't, for some reason, something comes up and you need some place for the student to stay for a while, a Rotarian can pass the background check and take them in for a few days.
That's right. So, yeah. And to answer your question, what are the requirements? What are the requirements for being a host family? Obviously, you've got to be able to pass a background check. Anybody over 18 in your family's got to pass a background check. So if you have older children, the families are responsible for making sure that their meals are taken care of. Other than, I think we pay for school lunch, right?
We pay for school lunch.
The Rotarians, we pay for the school lunch. So breakfast, supper, they're on the hook for being able to transport them to and from school, providing them a place to study. So they don't have to have their own bedroom, but they have to have their own space. So not sharing a bed with another member of the family. They have to have their own bed.
Sure.
Have to have their own desk. Am I missing something, Bob? If they have extracurriculars, obviously if the host parent can make it, fine. If not, me, Bob, Rotarians, we'll make sure they get. And what happens is once they get here and they get into school, they start making friends. That's why that first host family is so important, because that's the unknown. But once you have the host family, once this young lady is over here and she starts making friends in school, then it becomes real easy to, hey, Mom, do you mind if she comes and stays with us for a couple of months? Now you've got a known quantity. You know what this person is. Maybe she's been over to your house before, hanging out with your kid, and oh yeah, she's a sweet girl. Yeah, she'd be welcome to come here for a couple of months. That's what happened to my daughter over in Italy. Okay. She had her host family. Yeah. Things are a little different. I won't go into that because but what it is in the European countries, if you're sending out a student to be a host, to be an exchange student, then you have to take one in. We don't do that in the United States. We don't have that true reciprocal. Just because you're sending out, your kid is going out to be an exchange student, doesn't mean that you have to take one in the United States. So that first one that she had, couple was a little bit older, wasn't really a vibe with my daughter, but she met kids at school. So her last two host families were the parents of students that she met at school. And like I said, the same thing happens over here. You get in, they make friends, the families then are willing to take that student in because they know what they're getting at that point.
Yeah.
It's the 61st year of a Dixon tradition. The 2025 Petunia Festival returns July 3rd through 6th with fireworks, music, the carnival, and memories in the making. Plan your weekend at petuniafestival.org.
I didn't realize that was part of it. You could stay for a certain amount of time and then switch houses. I had no idea that was part of it.
Absolutely. We encourage that because, what life at my house is going to be one way. Life at your house is going to be another way. Life at Bob's house is going to be another way. We don't want them to have some, okay, this is the way it is. Well, they're all in Rock Falls, so it's going to be, this is the way it is to a limited, but certainly different families have different traditions and, just relationships and what have you. So yeah, we try to try to diversify them as much as we can in Rock Falls, if you will.
Our outbound, who's coming back the 17th of June, she's been in France. Mm-hmm. Her second host family, I believe, had little younger daughters. And she was the youngest in her family, so she never had a little sister. So now she has little sisters. And she'll have little sisters for the rest of her life. I remember Carl mentioning to me at her going away party that she has friends all over the world, and she'll have friends, because another thing that makes Rotary unique is that we don't expect that host family to be a tour guide or anything like that. Rotary, and at the district level, brings all their exchange students together, and they do things. They'll take them to Chicago for a boat ride. They just go kayaking, but about once a month they all get together. Yep. And when Carl was here, there was 20 of them from all different countries that she became friends with. Yeah, I think and same thing with Tommy.
Well, no, I'm just when we had Maggie and Flavian over, there was probably 12 to 15. Quad Cities, Rockford. I think Amboy might have had one, Dixon, Sterling, so you have these students and they're from Brazil, they're from Finland, they're from Japan, obviously France and
Ecuador,
Italy, wherever they come from. And they all get together and they hang out, so they all get to know each other pretty well. And then they have their WhatsApp group. That's the big texting.
Something new for both sides.
Yes, exactly. But like Bob said, we're not relying on the host family to take them around and take them into Chicago or anything, because they have that through the district, and they can go on those little trips.
And I got an email once from Maggie's from her parents with their first host family, and they said Maggie really would like to see Chicago, and they don't have any plans to go. And I said, okay. So I brought it up at a Rotary meeting, and one of our Rotarians took a trip into Chicago with them. Mm-hmm. They were going anyway, so they just took Maggie. Yep. It's that connection that you have with Rotary that makes the exchange program so much easier and special for the exchange student and for the host families.
Okay, you guys obviously know what you're doing in terms of, how your program works. So is it becoming easier? Has it stayed about the same over the years, or is it getting tougher to enlist host families?
Well, it's tougher now because we've taken off since COVID. Yep. So we lost pipeline. When we had students coming over, students from Rock Falls High School would know that student, and they'd say, "Hey, Mom and Dad, there's another student coming in next week. Can we host that next year?
Right.
Can we host them?" We don't have that now.
The seniors this year probably never had
an
exchange
Rotary Exchange student. So they don't.
Again, I think that's, as you said, you still remember your exchange student from high school. I still remember our exchange students from high school. I think that's missing, to have that person that you can kind of pick their brain and see what life is like back in their home country and what are the differences and what you have. And yeah, there's a whole high school full of them right now that have never known an exchange student.
Right.
So we'd like to change that.
What is it?
Kind of broke the chain there.
Yeah. 26 countries, or there's multiple countries. We'll have the students, they all say, well, I want to go to Australia. Well, Rotary is a true exchange program. If Australia sends the United States 6 students, they get 6 back. Which means everybody in the United States that's trying to send an exchange student, if they put Australia on their list, their chances are pretty slim that they're going to get to go to Australia.
Yeah.
But they put a list of top 3 or so. What is it?
Top 10.
Top 10.
And
okay.
They try to get you one of your top 3.
Yeah. So when Kimsey went over, she went to Malaysia because she did not want the European experience. She said, I want to know what life is like completely different from the United States. And in Europe, people speak English, people have customs like we do. I want to be completely. So when she got Malaysia, I first thought, oh no, she's not going to be happy. She said, "Oh, I'm thrilled."
Yeah.
And Malaysian is one of the hardest languages to learn.
Yeah,
she learned it, and she's going into international studies. She's getting she's graduated this year, and she's getting her master's, and she'll in international languages, and she will be a teacher. She's getting a degree, a teaching degree with her master's degree. We had Mark Guile, who is very involved in the community, was on Sterling School Board for a long time. He was an exchange student that went to Japan, and now he works in international sales for Wall Clipper. So it's a door opener for sure. There are 2 things I tell kids, and I know kids that have been through both of these. 2 door openers and icebreakers you have in any job interview, or I was an exchange student and I worked at Disney World. Those are the 2 things. And I've had friends whose kids have been exchange students, and I've had friends who they did the college intern program at Disney World.
Because everybody knows Disney World.
As soon as they see that on the application, the first question to them was, what was it like to be an exchange student in France? Right. Or what was it like to work at Disney World? And then you get comfortable, and the interview goes so much better than your first interview being, well, what do you know about our company?
Right.
The first question is usually, you were an exchange student? Where did you go? What was it like? And 20 minutes later, you finally get to the job interview. Yeah. As I told Tom and Jonna and Tommy when they were interviewing to go out, I said, we send out 16, 17-year-olds. We bring back 22-year-olds. They mature so much.
I completely agree.
They come back. They can either go their junior or senior year. I advise them to go their senior year because you can get all your work in and you can graduate early because not all the credits transfer.
Right.
And then you come back and you go to college. Because if you come back after a junior year, all of the drama in high school is so petty because you've been to another country and you've had to fend for yourself, right, Tom?
That's right. She came back. My daughter went out as a junior and came back in her senior year. Fortunately, she had done enough credits. Because that's the other thing. You're going to have to speed up your education a little bit, take the government a little bit earlier. There's certain things that we want you to know, like how your government works. So if the people in the other country ask you what are the 3 branches of government, you can actually know those things. But when she come back, she did a semester at Rock Falls, and then because they're doing so many dual credits now, she just went to Sauk for her 2nd semester and was able to graduate. So it's become less of an issue than it used to be because of those dual credits that you can take. But
okay, well, we've got a pretty good idea, I think, about how it works. Now, we're going to need some contact information. I have a feeling we may put some of this on the screen so people can have a little bit more time to write it down. But Who wants to
Well,
do the
I'm
honors?
the youth exchange officer, and only because Bob gave it up, because he was doing it for, 20 years or so?
for a long time.
For a long time. So you can contact me, Tom Myers. Contact me at my business, Smeltzer Insurance Agency, or I can be reached at 815-631-1675.
And, that's the best, because Tom is in charge of youth exchange now. But if you feel more comfortable, if you know me and you want to contact me, my cell phone number is 815-622-8782. You might have to leave a message or send a text saying, "Hi, this is so-and-so, I'm interested in youth exchange," and I'll call you back. Because as everyone, when a number comes up on my phone that I don't know, very rarely do I answer.
That's right.
Because it's always telemarketer or something.
That's
Yes.
right. Text is fine. I will answer text. I have no problem with that. So.
Yep, exactly.
All right.
So,
But yes, it's imperative that we find at least a home, a host family that is willing to go, even if it's just for 30 days, 60 days. We just need to have that initial host family set up, because the visas and everything that they need to come over to the United States can take some time. So we're getting down to the last couple of months here. So we'd like to be able to to at least get that first host family set up. And like I said, it gets easier after that. Usually, once they've got to school and they've made some friends, the second host family kind of it just shows up.
Naturally,
Because they know that's my daughter's friend, or it's my son's friend, whatever. So,
Sure.
And as I said, we have a young lady coming from Czechia. So if that's important, if you have a daughter at Rock Falls High School, this would be ideal, of course, because then you have friends and somebody about the same age. But it's not necessary. It's just it tends to work out better that way, of course. But it is a young lady, and that's where she's from.
Yeah.
and if you're, we really want this young lady to come over. But if you think, well, I would like to be a host family, but maybe next year, well, call us anyway.
Yeah.
Because we'll be doing it again next year.
Mm-hmm.
Might as well get ahead of it, especially since the chain link that broke during COVID.
Right.
Excuse me.
Yeah, we want to, part of the reason why we're here is, I don't want a responsibility for another kid. Well, you're going to have a whole lot of help. Me, Bob, the whole, Rotary, you've got the district level that, we can always find them a ride. If they want to get involved in basketball or, volleyball or whatever, softball, if they're going to band, whatever extracurriculars they are, if you don't have the time for it, because of work schedule or whatever else, we can make sure that those rides are arranged, and we can make sure that those are taken care of.
And if you're an overworked parent, this might, spark some curiosity in you too about what things are like on the other side of the world.
Yep.
Might, put your imagination to work.
Right.
So, gentlemen, Tom Myers and Bob Sondgeroth from Rock Falls Rotarian
Thank you.
Organization.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming, and I appreciate it. Also appreciate our staff and our crew for helping put this show on the air, so to speak, on the web. And I'm Mike Moris. Hope you can join us next time for Along the Rock.
I actually knew about the program when I was just a kid. I had met a different foreign exchange student, or a student who was a Rock Falls student who had gone on exchange to Finland and came back and was telling me about it when I was in maybe 3rd grade. So I remember walking up to my mom and telling her,